Hello, hi. We're back on the usual platform now. We've actually got an Meet Pro with us as well, so hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing will go wrong with this one. So we have Stuart Bruce here. Stuart Bruce is the founder of Purposeful Relations. So before I tell you a little bit more about Stuart, just want to let you all know that we are announcing 6 winners after this session on Twitter. So make sure that you post in your photos using the hashtag commsHERO. You can put it on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Just go for it, and you will be able to win some amazing Krispy Kreme donuts. I mean, who does not love them? So, a little bit about Stuart. Stuart is internationally recognised as a PR futurist. He is a thinker and a doer in modernised PR and communications. He specialises in digital transformation PR, strategy, measurement, community management, reputation, and crisis comms. So I'm really looking forward to this session because it's talking all about keeping up with updates on social media and everything like that. And it's like, come on, stop updating everything. We're only just catching up. Please stop making new updates. So without further ado, I'll pass to you, Stuart.
Brilliant. Thank you for that introduction, Kate. There's been some great sessions already this week. I've missed most of today's because I've been running training courses, but let's get straight into the presentation. So I will share my screen. And here we go. Wait for it to catch up. Yep, there we go. It has caught up to us. So yes, so what we want to talk about this afternoon is keeping up with the Joneses. And what we mean by that is looking at kind of the future of public relations and communications and what's coming down the tracks towards us, what we need to be aware of. Now, it's always very difficult when you're talking about the future because you're really afraid that you're going to make an ass of yourself and get it all wrong. So I've got a top tip for you before we start. When you're searching for a picture of an ass, search for the word donkey instead. It's a lot safer. So the future has already arrived and it's just not evenly distributed yet, according to William Gibson. And I think that's very true. There are lots of technologies out there that public relations and communications people could be using, but they aren't necessarily. But as Kate said, one of the big challenges that we've got is actually keeping up with everything. Because they say that a week is a long time in politics. Believe me, it's even longer in the future of comms. So I started kind of preparing this deck about a week ago, and I made the final update yesterday. So in the morning, I thought, oh, wow, this is a good story. So Google's introduced this new AI generator that creates videos. I'll talk about that. I'll pop that into the deck. Then later in the day, I saw this, that Google's new AI video generator was kaput. It had gone. It no longer existed. And guess what? This is why we can't have shiny new things, because people abuse them. But this isn't new. How couldn't Google have predicted this? Because any of us that can remember a few years ago when Microsoft launched Tay, its AI on Twitter, it lasted a day before the same people spoiled it for everybody. So this is a really fast-moving space that even if you create your presentation the same day, it might change by the time you're talking. But it's also kind of such a fast-changing space in terms of what's happened to technology over the last few years. So in our lifetimes, or at least in my lifetime, some of you, I think a lot of people on here will be even younger than the game that we're looking at. You know, this is what's happened to video games just in such a short period of time. We've gone from Pong, which kind of black and kind of lines in 1972, you know, right up to now where you've got things like Final Fantasy, where you feel immersed in a real environment. And so many of these technologies are actually impacting on what we're doing today. So I can't talk about them all in the next 20 minutes, but I'm just going to touch on some of them and the difference it's making to our lives as professional communicators. And one way of looking at this is some of you might be familiar with the Gartner hype cycle. So one of the things I've been doing with colleagues is that we've just been playing around with thinking about where some of these technologies sit on the Gartner hype cycle. So I think without a doubt, metaverses must be sitting at the top of that peak of inflated expectations. Everybody's talking about them, everybody's excited about them, but nobody really knows what's happening. NFTs, well, people were excited about them, and chimps and all sorts of stuff, and paying a fortune. They're pretty much in that trough of disillusionment at the moment. Whether or not they'll ever come out, who knows? But what about some of these other technologies and how they can be used in PR and comms? So I've just popped up a list there of some of the applications that I'm aware of where people are using artificial intelligence and machine learning to do things in a different way, whether it's to make it faster, better, easier. All of these things are being disrupted by kind of new technology now. So just take AI writing. That's probably the one that most people are familiar with, but how much do they really know about it? Have they played with it? Have they used it? So this is an article from The Guardian about humans have nothing to fear from AI, and it was written by AI. And have you had a play with any AI tools? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I've just put a quick example up here of one that I was having a quick play with. So I gave it a brief that I was going to be doing a talk about the future of public relations, and these were some of the topics I was going to talk about, and I asked it to write some emails for me. I don't have time. Let's see what it can do. And you can see just from that very brief bit of text that I put into those key points on the left, this is what it came up with. A couple of variants of emails that took the key points I made and turned them into persuasive emails. I haven't edited these are just straight as they come. But that's not the only way you can use kind of some of these GPT-3 AI tools. Another one is idea generation. And this perhaps for me is one of the most exciting. So if you're about to have a creative meeting or a brainstorm, a thought shower, whatever you want to call it, this is one that I did with the Council of Europe, one of my clients. And we basically used it to create a template for what a new website might look like. And we kind of put in some key points about the Council of Europe, and this is what it came up with, some themes based around trust. So that was able to kind of shape the focus of what we talked about and give us some ideas for the type of content we could do, videos we could create, pages we could create, interviews we could do, all far faster than if we'd done it from scratch. Another example of how you can use AI is for writing news releases. Yep, you've heard me right. So a couple of examples here. So one was with a client that I worked with, which was a tourism authority, where we had big reams of data all about how effective the tourist body was in terms of bringing in visitors to different towns across the area. So we used an AI tool to actually generate lots and lots of local news releases with the local data in and local quotes, none of which needed kind of human intervention, because it would have been a pretty dull job for a human to have to do. And then another one from the US, which was a car manufacturer that used an AI tool to create template news releases. Instead of doing template news releases that local dealers had to adapt to use in their area, it actually created the whole news release. So they actually just got the finished product was there and ready to use, generated by AI. Another place where we're seeing innovation is in predictive analytics. There are lots and lots of tools out there. So for example, NewsWhip, where they'll take a news story or a social media post and predict if it's going to go viral and how quickly it's going to change. Another interesting one, which is also one that one of my clients in Europe was using, is video analysis. They've got huge reams of video content. So, for example, if they hold a summit, they will literally have hundreds of hours of video content at the end of it that's been taken. We can now use AI to do things like identifying who's in each shot, doing transcriptions of it. So it now becomes really quickly to make sense of this video content, to find the best parts, the parts that we can edit and use. There are even editing tools that are beginning to emerge where the AI is not just identifying the right bit of the video, it's pulling it out and starting to edit it into something that you can use as content on a website. A different AI video tool can go through your media library and you can see the example on the left where it's recognizing a gondola and a town. So you can instantly start to catalog everything, so you know what you've got available to use. The downside of some tools like that is they're quite expensive. They're not mainstream yet. But what about this one? These are mainstream tools that are very low cost. So I've just popped up here a blog post that I did about the wonderful Marcus Rashford, one of my commsHEROs. And a couple of ways I used AI on this page is I created a video where all I did was drop the URL of the blog post into the tool, and it generated a 60-second video for me, totally from scratch, where it pulled out some of the key quotes from the blog post. Then all I needed to do was edit it and publish it. It's the type of thing, if you were doing yourself, would probably take half a day. This took half an hour. The other one that we've got on there is there's an audio version of the blog post, but it's not me sitting reading it. I don't have time. It'd be better if I did, but I don't. Instead, we used an AI audio tool to basically read it and just automatically turn it into a podcast. And some of the tools that we used here, you can see, so Pictory and Wave Video are two of the tools that you can use for that sort of type of sorcery to turn your blog post or your article into a video. But there's other AI tools out there. So Writer is the one I used with the Council of Europe to generate those ideas, or even pictures. Maybe we can give Damien Hirst a run for his money, because tools like DALL-E 2 and Dream Studio, you can type in a description of the picture that you want to see, and just like magic, it will generate that picture for you. So these are a couple of examples that I created using Dream Studio. So the first one, I just said I wanted a picture of a horse galloping along a windswept beach, and that's what it gave me. You can on Dream Studio, you can generate up to 9 different images at the same time. So the one on the right, I said I wanted to see a Land Rover in a forest at night, and those were kind of the options that it gave me to use. So it's really quite exciting, some of the stuff you can do, because those tools are affordable. The kind of the first tools I showed you about kind of cataloging your video content, they're more expensive. But as computing power comes down, the cost of it comes down, they're becoming more and more accessible. There are loads and loads of these tools that you could potentially start using. So I thought all I've done here is I've just done a quick screen grab of the home screen of my browser, because there are so many tools that we're now using that you forget what does what. So kind of trying to categorize them like this just reminds me what's available, that I can use Lovo for doing audio. Or another new tool that we've started recently is a tool called Instaminutes. It's not perfect yet, but it basically will automatically join a Zoom or a Teams meeting and do transcription for you. So everybody straight after the end of the meeting gets a copy of the transcript. But better than that, it uses AI to try and go through the transcript to identify the action points and pulls them out as highlights. I've got to be honest, that bit doesn't totally work yet. The last meeting we did, it missed a lot, but it did get one of the things that was a bone of contention and the client had misheard. It pulled it out. So it was really easy for me to clarify that actually that was something we'd agreed in the meeting. So lots and lots of kind of time-saving things. But before we get too carried away, we need to think about AI ethics. Because although these tools are really powerful, they could also be really dangerous. Just think of the type of images that you could create with tools like DALL-E or Dream Studio, or the scope for causing trouble by using AI writing tools to create fake or misleading content. So it's really important that we think about that. And a couple of resources that I would recommend you take a look at is the CIPR has published an ethics guide to artificial intelligence in PR, which is well worth a read. But the other one that's well worth taking a look at is Rolls-Royce have published a guide, because they've actually been using AI for a long time. Originally, they were using it to do things like to assess engine safety on aircraft. but the principles and the theory behind that can apply to anything. So you can use the kind of Rolls-Royce AI guide to assess if what you're about to do is the right thing, and look for what the pitfalls are and make sure you're doing it in the best possible way. Because one of the problems with AI is that computers don't make mistakes, but humans do, is one of the things that Steve Jobs said. But how the AI or the machine learning tool learns, if it's already biased, if it's already problematic, then the AI tool is going to learn those problems. It's going to learn those biases. And this is, and that's what the Alethea framework from Rolls-Royce is designed to help you to avoid, is to think of those things in advance. Because if you don't, this is what happens. And there are so many examples I could have picked of AI bias. And these ones are all from Facebook. But you've got to think about that, and it's one of our jobs as PR and communications people, not just to look at how we're using AI, but to look at how our organizations are using it in other parts of the business to make sure that they're doing so ethically. Data. How can PR people possibly operate in 2022 without understanding data? And there's two types of data that you need to think about. There's structured data, which is what most people think about. But there's also unstructured data, and that's where AI tools can help us to make sense of them. So if you are doing focus groups and you're getting lots and lots of kind of automated transcripts, you can actually begin to make sense of that, even if there's hundreds and thousands of words. It can help you to analyze it. And just thinking about how we should think about data, I love this graphic. I have no idea who created it. I've tried to track down the source, but actually being able to tell stories with data is so important, and I would consider it to be a vital PR skill today. Blockchain. So usually when people think about blockchain, what they're thinking about is Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But it's got far more potential uses than that. Have you thought about how you could use it to verify news? So that's what Verizon is doing. They've created a tool called Full Transparency, which basically verifies their corporate news. You can see if it's been changed or modified. And you can do that. So we're going to start seeing media sites doing that. We're going to start seeing more corporate newsrooms doing that. I've already been talking to one of the white label newsroom companies, and they're looking at kind of adding this to their platform in the very near future. Or deep fakes. We've all seen how terrible deep fakes can be, and kind of Jordan Peele's Obama deep fake is probably one of the most famous, but you can also have deep fakes for good. So this is one that Synthesia, which is a kind of London-based startup, did with David Beckham for the malaria campaign to highlight the need to end it. So we had David Beckham talking in multiple languages that he didn't speak. And you can see how they analyzed his face so as they could actually make his mouth move towards all these different languages that he claimed to be speaking. The same company is also behind this, which is actually creating digital humans. So big companies like EY are having digital versions of their partners and senior fee earners created so as they can actually have them talking and giving presentations, and it appears to be them when it's actually a digital synthesized human. It's also been on TV. This was Korea, where in 2020, they actually had an entire 30-minute news bulletin delivered by a digital human, which was a replica of one of their real news readers. And the idea is they're thinking of using this tool in things like disasters and emergencies, where maybe the presenter hasn't had time to get into the studio or needs to take a break during a very long stint. And this is potentially where the digital human can come in. But you're all screaming now, what about the metaverse? Why hasn't he talked about the metaverse? Well, in the final moments of the presentation, I'm going to say a little bit about the metaverse and what it means for public relations and communications. Part of the reason I haven't talked about it is I don't know. Nobody knows. If we're totally and utterly honest, what is the metaverse? Well, this is something I wrote last week, just last week. If it truly is the metaverse, then somebody in Meta's Horizon Worlds will be able to have a meeting there with somebody in Microsoft Mesh. That ain't going to happen anytime soon because we don't have that interoperability, because that's a hard word to say, which is what we need. Then what happened this week? There was an announcement from Microsoft that you were going to be use Meta's Quest devices to access its metaverse in Teams. Now, it doesn't actually mean you can meet from one place to the other. It just means that you can use the technology there. So it doesn't actually solve the problem that I was talking about. Hopefully, the Metaverse Standards Forum will tackle issues like that. At the moment, it's more focused on the technology rather than the actual interoperability of metaverses. And there was a really good book came out this summer by Matthew Ball, and he was talking about, he tried to define the metaverse, which is something we're all struggling to do. The metaverse is a persistent and interconnected network of 34 virtual worlds that will eventually serve as the gateway to most online experiences and also underpin much of the physical world. So let's start kind of analyzing what that actually might mean. For me, I've got a simpler version. A metaverse is a virtual place where real people can go and interact with others. But it's not new. Anybody remember Second Life? That was 2003. That was a virtual world that had loads of hype at the time. We had people at the European Union setting up offices there. We had the Linden dollar that you could spend. It was great while it lasted, and actually it's still there. It's just kind of falling out of prominence, and it didn't take off because it required computers that were too powerful at the time. But also the metaverse is things like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft. Those are all virtual worlds. And I think what the difference is today is when we talk about virtual worlds, we're talking about the VR headset. And there's the problem. This is why they're not going to take off immediately, because they're expensive and they're uncomfortable, and most people don't have one. When they do, maybe metaverses will begin to take off, but we're not there yet. But I just want to jump back before we finish to Matthew Ball's kind of definition of what the metaverse is. So note the capital M, because one of the things that we're not sure about yet is it the metaverse or a series of metaverses that are separate, or a series of interconnected metaverses? So the capital M implies that it's a single entity. However, persistent and interconnected network means it's multiple environments that are interconnected. Eventually, we're not there yet. Even an enthusiast like him kind of recognizes that metaverses don't really exist. They're not where the internet is, but it's where they're going. So personally, I see it a bit like kind of the World Wide Web, where if the metaverse is really going to work, it is going to be a virtual world. It is going to be a virtual environment. But unless we can move between them, unless we can talk to each other, it's not going to work. And I see it a bit like where we are at the moment is those of us that are old enough to remember the 80s. It's a bit like kind of who dares wins, which was going to win, VHS or Betamax. And even though kind of Betamax videotapes, you're saying? What are videotapes? Were technologically superior. They failed because they were too expensive, and VHS was cheaper, even though it wasn't as good. So that was the standard that emerged and people were aware of. So last point, so leave a little bit of time for questions, is there's two ways of thinking about some of these emerging technologies. You can think about it as a painkiller. What are your pain points in your job that this technology can take away and make life easier? Or you can think about them as multivitamins. What are the bits in your job where this can give you superpowers and enable you to do new things that you couldn't do before? So finally, don't be shy, connect on social media. And if we want to kind of continue this discussion about what the different technologies that are available are, then that's the place where we can do it. So I'm going to close the screen share now and see if we have any time for discussion or questions.
Hello, I'm back.
Brilliant.
Hey. That was really interesting. I can see that you're so passionate about the subject. It's really nice, and like I say, it sort of opened my eyes a bit because you didn't really know that there's so much goes on. And can I just say, you won't be able to see it now, but that cactus that you've got behind you is seriously impressive. I've had the ones from IKEA that are like this big, and they die within a few weeks. I don't know what I do, but anyway.
Yeah,
That's
no,
it.
this one's giant and it's about 25 years old now.
Stop it. That's mental. Well done. Far better than me. So we have had a few questions come in. So we've got first one here from Jules Loveland. So she says, do you see metaverses being taken seriously outside of gaming and tech communities? Will corporate charities, councils be using them in the future?
I think the answer to that is yes, but not quickly. And I actually think the first places they are going to be used is going to be in corporates, because the kit to buy the VR headsets, etc., is so expensive what I can see happen is some beginning to invest in it. So things like what we do at the moment as Teams or Zoom meetings will become, I mean, that's where Microsoft's going. They're trying to get people to use kind of VR for Teams meetings. I do think that will happen in the kind of medium future. I think in terms of mass adoption and consumers using it, I think that's some way off, because it's just too expensive and headsets are uncomfortable. Simple as that.
Yep, I agree. But if I go away here, there you go. You can see the cactus, everyone. Just look at that.
Oh,
Look at it. So we got another question here from Dylan Lambert. So he said, do you see AI as a human assistance tool or a replacement for human involvement?
I think definitely as assistant. Partially because that's what I want to see. If I just use that example of the Tourism Authority, when we started using the AI writing tool for them, that was somebody's job. So there was two options. We could get rid of a person and start using the AI tools to do it, or do what we actually do and give that person a much more interesting job where they could be more creative and more strategic, and they could use their skills in a better way. So I very much see that. I think that's the way to go. It's about enabling us to do things better.
Thank you. And then lastly, we have a question here from Andrew Gledhill. He says, it's a full-time job keeping up with everything. Yes, it is. Would I make money if I created an AI to help?
I wish. But I don't want people that's what our business is. That this is what we do in our kind of fortnightly newsletter, is try to keep people updated on things like this. But as that first example showed of the kind of the Google video tool, even if you're kind of looking at this every day, you can still get caught out. I kind of couldn't believe it after I finished my presentation, and discovered it was wrong because it had changed while I was writing it.
I know. It's like, come on, give us all a break. But yeah, so we've had some nice comments as well come in there. So Andrew says it's been really insightful and thought provoking. And then from Andrew there, so the tourist agency auto generated press release thing is seriously scary. I'm away to get my CV updated.
But jokes aside, I think this is one thing we need to think about, is what skills we need to future-proof ourselves. And if it's simply doing basic writing and stuff, that's not going to be enough. And one of the things that scares me is entry level. Is how do people start? Because often a lot of the tasks that are being automated are the things that you do when you get your first job, and how you learn how to do more. If
Oh, sorry, I think we've had a little bit of a dip in your connection there. But yeah, but no, like obviously I'm quite young. That cactus is actually older than me, so and I delved in the area of AR. I thought I was very impressed that I started to make my own Instagram filters, Snapchat filters, and everything. And I was like, wow, look at all this that you can do. So I used, for anyone that's interested in delving into that, I used Spark AR. It was quite easy to use. There's loads of tutorials and stuff. So yeah, so upskilling teams, but it's not just people like me in comms teams or anything like that. It'll be creative designers and stuff. We need to start thinking more like that. And like I say, it's a world out there, isn't it? Like, well, it's the meta world, if you want to say. It's huge. So yeah, completely agree. So yeah, thank you very much. It's been, like I say, it's been an eye-opener. Thank you for all your knowledge. It's brilliant.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kate. And thanks everybody for the questions and comments.
Perfect. So just to end this session and end the day, I am going to announce some winners. Woo! So, drum roll, please. So we have Jules Loveland, you have won some prizes. Daryl Sperry, Sarah Dakin, Cheryl Gibbons, Adam Driver, and Gethin Evans. Thank you all for sharing your pictures social media. Keep going, keep the FOMO going. Thank you all for all the interaction, all the engagement. You're all amazing. You're all commsHEROs. You're all better than commsHEROs. You're commsHERO legends. So we'll be in contact with you with the best address to send your vouchers to. But yes, you've got some lovely Krispy Kremes on your way. But anyway, thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Stuart. You're amazing. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.